Hello, everyone. Today's story tells about the emotional first days of parenthood for Tieu Hue and CEO Tuan after the baby was born. From the awkward moments of learning how to change diapers and bathe their newborn, to the long, sleepless nights taking turns comforting their baby, the couple faced every challenge together. Even though they were exhausted and short on sleep, their love for their child and their care for each other made them stronger. Seeing how much Tieu Hue went through to give birth and care for their baby, CEO Tuan grew even more loving and appreciative of his wife. These simple but meaningful moments slowly created a warm home where their family's love grew stronger every single day. If you enjoy touching stories about family, love, and everyday life like this one, please like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel to support us. Your support is a huge motivation for us to continue bringing you more heartfelt and meaningful stories in the future. Thank you so much for watching. After their baby was born, life for Tieu Hue and CEO Tuan changed in ways neither of them had ever imagined. Their once quiet home, which used to be filled only with the sound of soft music or the occasional phone call from work, was now alive with the gentle cries and tiny movements of a newborn. Every corner of the house seemed different, as if it had suddenly become warmer and more meaningful. In the center of it all was the small crib placed carefully beside their bed, where their baby slept peacefully most of the time. For Tieu Hue, the days after giving birth were both joyful and exhausting. Her body was still weak from the long and difficult delivery, yet every time she looked at her baby's tiny face, all the pain and fatigue seemed to fade away. She spent hours learning how to hold the baby properly, how to wrap the blanket around the little body, and how to gently change the baby's diaper without waking the child. Each movement had to be careful and patient. Sometimes she worried she might do something wrong, but her motherly instincts guided her step by step. CEO Tuan, who was known in the business world as a decisive and confident leader, suddenly found himself feeling like a beginner in the world of fatherhood. He had handled multi-million-dollar deals and led important meetings without hesitation, but when it came to holding his newborn baby for the first time, his hands trembled slightly. The baby looked so small and fragile that he was afraid of making even the smallest mistake. One afternoon, as the baby woke up crying softly, Tuan decided to try changing the diaper himself. He carefully placed the baby on the soft changing mat while Tieu Hue watched from beside him, smiling gently. At first, he struggled with the tiny straps and soft cloth. The diaper was slightly crooked, and the baby kicked its little legs, making him even more nervous. Seeing his awkward movements, Tieu Hue couldn't help but laugh softly. Her laughter filled the room with warmth, easing his tension. "Let me help you a little," she said kindly, guiding his hands step by step. Together, they finally managed to change the diaper properly. When they finished, the baby stopped crying and stared at them with wide, curious eyes. In that simple moment, both of them burst into quiet laughter, feeling an unexpected sense of accomplishment. Throughout the day, they took turns caring for their child. Tieu Hue would prepare warm water and gently bathe the baby, while Tuan stood nearby, holding a soft towel, ready to wrap the baby the moment the bath was finished. He watched carefully, memorizing every step so he could help next time. Sometimes he would lean closer to the crib just to watch the baby breathe slowly while sleeping. Although they were both tired from the constant care and lack of sleep, their hearts were filled with a quiet happiness that neither of them had ever experienced before. Every small action, changing a diaper, preparing milk, or simply watching their baby sleep, became a precious memory. In those early days of uncertainty and learning, Tieu Hue and Tuan slowly began to understand that becoming parents was not about perfection. It was about patience, love, and growing together with their child, one gentle moment at a time. As the days passed, Tieu Hue and CEO Tuan slowly began to adjust to their new life as parents. However, the real challenge came every night when the house grew quiet and the world outside fell asleep. For most families with newborns, nighttime often became the longest and most exhausting part of the day, and it was no different for them. The baby rarely slept through the night. Sometimes, only an hour after being gently placed in the crib, the soft cries of the baby would echo through the room. Tieu Hue would open her eyes immediately, even if she had only just fallen asleep. Her motherly instincts had become incredibly sensitive. The moment she heard the baby's cry, she would slowly sit up, still feeling the heaviness in her body after giving birth. Before she could even stand up, Tuan would already be awake beside her. "Let me carry the baby," he would whisper softly, not wanting to make the situation more stressful for her. He would gently walk over to the crib and carefully lift the baby into his arms. At first, he had been nervous about holding such a tiny life, but now his movements were becoming more natural. He would hold the baby close to his chest, slowly rocking back and forth while walking quietly across the room. Meanwhile, Tieu Hue would prepare to feed the baby. Even though her body was still recovering and she often felt extremely tired, she never complained. For her, every moment of caring for her child felt meaningful. Still, Tuan could clearly see how exhausted she was. There were nights when the baby refused to sleep for hours. The little one would cry, move restlessly, or simply stare around with curious eyes, as if exploring the world for the first time. During those moments, both of them stayed awake together. Sometimes Tuan would gently hum a lullaby while pacing slowly around the room with the baby in his arms. His voice was not perfect, but it was warm and calm. The baby often quieted down when hearing the soft rhythm of his voice. Tieu Hue would sit nearby on the bed, watching them with a tired but loving smile. Seeing her husband trying so hard to soothe their child filled her heart with warmth. She realized she was not facing this difficult journey alone. On especially exhausting nights, Tuan would insist that she lie down and rest for a while. "You need to sleep," he would tell her softly. "I'll take care of the baby for a bit." Even though she hesitated at first, she eventually allowed herself a few moments of rest. While she slept lightly, Tuan continued walking around the room, gently patting the baby's back and whispering comforting words. The house was silent except for the quiet footsteps of a father and the soft breathing of a newborn. Although both of them were losing sleep and feeling the weight of constant responsibility, those long nights slowly strengthened the bond between them. They learned how to support each other without needing many words. A simple glance or a gentle smile was enough to remind them that they were a team. Parenthood was not easy, but in those quiet midnight hours, Tieu Hue and Tuan began to understand something important. Love sometimes appeared in the smallest, simplest acts, like staying awake together in the darkness, holding their child close, and facing every challenge side by side. One quiet morning, after another long night of caring for their newborn baby, the soft golden sunlight slowly entered the bedroom through the half-open curtains. The room was peaceful, filled only with the gentle sound of the baby breathing softly in sleep. Tieu Hue had finally fallen asleep while holding the baby close to her chest. Her body leaned slightly against the pillows, her arms wrapped protectively around the tiny child, as if nothing in the world mattered more. CEO Tuan stood quietly near the bed for a moment, watching the scene in front of him. His heart felt strangely warm and emotional. Tieu Hue's face looked tired, and there were faint shadows under her eyes from the many sleepless nights she had endured since the baby was born. Yet even in her exhaustion, there was a calm and gentle expression on her face. It was the peaceful look of a mother who had given all her love to her child. Tuan slowly walked closer and sat beside the bed, afraid that even the smallest noise might wake them. He carefully adjusted the blanket covering Tieu Hue and the baby so they would stay warm. As he looked at them, memories of the past months began to flood his mind. He remembered the long months of pregnancy, the doctor visits, the careful preparations, and the quiet worries that Tieu Hue had carried without ever complaining. He remembered the painful hours she had gone through to bring their child safely into the world. At that moment, Tuan truly realized how much she had sacrificed for their family. In the business world, Tuan was known as a strong and decisive CEO. People admired his intelligence and leadership, but very few had ever seen this softer side of him. Looking at his sleeping wife and child, he felt a deep sense of gratitude that words could hardly express. Gently, he reached out and held Tieu Hue's hand. Her fingers were slightly warm, and even in her sleep, she seemed to respond to his touch. When she slowly opened her eyes and saw him sitting beside her, she gave a faint, sleepy smile. "You should rest too," she whispered softly. "You stayed up with the baby all night." Tuan shook his head with a gentle smile. "I'm fine. You're the one who has worked the hardest." For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply looked at the baby sleeping peacefully between them. The tiny chest rose and fell slowly with each breath, and occasionally the baby's small fingers twitched as if dreaming. Tuan leaned closer and softly kissed Tieu Hue's forehead. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "You went through so much to bring our child into this world. I'm really grateful, and I love you even more." Hearing those words, Tieu Hue's eyes became slightly moist. The exhaustion she had felt over the past weeks suddenly seemed lighter. She knew that all the sleepless nights, the pain, and the challenges were worth it because they were building a family together. From that day on, Tuan silently promised himself that no matter how busy his work became, he would always protect and cherish this small family. Success, wealth, and status meant little compared to the simple happiness of sitting beside the people he loved. In their warm little home, life was still full of challenges, sleepless nights, and endless responsibilities. But between the soft laughter of a newborn and the quiet understanding between husband and wife, love continued to grow stronger each day, filling their home with warmth and hope for the future.